My name is Larry Petit. It is July 16th, 2014. We're here for the Shreveport Bar Association Historical Initiative, as well as the Louisiana Bar Foundation's interview of attorneys who made a significant contribution to the state bar and the local bar. And we were going to talk with Judge Andrew Gallagher, who's here with me today. I'm going to start off by asking you to state your full name and where and when you were born.
Andrew B. Gallagher. I was born on September 21st, 1929 in Cincinnati, Ohio.
Now, Judge Gallagher, I want you to tell us a little bit, who were your parents?
My parents were Andy Gallagher, Andrew Cadwallader Gallagher, and Dulcie Brutton Gallagher. They were I'm trying to place them. They, both of my parents, I might say, passed away when I was 11 years old.
And what did your dad do?
My dad was an attorney in Cincinnati.
Do you know what type of law he practiced?
He primarily real estate law.
Say, and where did you go then to high school? Where did you get your high school education?
Walnut Hills High School in Cincinnati.
You have brothers and sisters? You're the only child.
I'm an only child.
When when you were 11, where or who raised you?
I was raised by my my mother's brother, Harry and Bertha Brutton. He was an executive with Procter & Gamble, and they got me through school.
Where'd you go to college?
I went to college at Washington Lee University in Lexington, Virginia.
All right, what about law school?
Well, I stayed on. Back in those days, you could just walk across the campus and say to the secretary, Ms. McDowell, I'd like to go to law school, and she'd sign you up.
Now, I know a little of this history. There was a pretty strong Shreveport connection with the law school at Washington Lee University through Colonel Tucker, correct?
Correct, yes.
As a matter of fact, the law school building was at one time perhaps where you did your
Tucker Hall?
Tucker Hall.
Sure did.
So, well, tell us, what brought you then to Shreveport, Louisiana, when you graduated from Washington Lee undergrad and law school?
Well, I had a very, very good friend named Bob Goodman, who was a fraternity brother. And Bob, after he graduated a year ahead of me, and he went to LSU Law School. And he said, Andy, why don't you come on down here and get your feet wet? And so I did.
When did you get to Shreveport, if you can remember?
I got here. See, I graduated from law school in '55. I took and passed the Virginia bar, and it would have been June of '55, probably.
Do you have any military in your background?
Yes.
Tell us about that.
Well, I got a letter one day from the federal government, from the president, asking that I come and work for him for a while. And so I drafted. And I ended up at Indiantown Gap, Pennsylvania, in the infantry. And I took basic training at Indiantown Gap, Pennsylvania, near Harrisburg. And at that time, it was a pipeline to Korea. And I don't whatever happened when I graduated, when I finished basic, I waited, and I was assuming that I was going to go to Korea. Next thing I knew, I was posted to Europe, and so I went to Europe, and
we're talking about 1956 time
period? Earlier than that. This was the early 50s. Earlier 50s.
And where in Europe did you go?
Well, when I got to Europe, of course, you go to what we call the Reppel Depot in Germany, and I went through the line, and I thought, well, you know, this infantry MOS, maybe I can sign up for something else. And so I kept going through the line, and each time I tried another Signal Corps, artillery, and they sent me back to the head of the line. And so finally, the young man who was interviewing me, he said, well, all right, where would you like to go? And the thought of Berlin attracted me. One thing I was thinking, well, you won't be out in the woods that much in Berlin. So I was stationed in Berlin. After I was in Berlin, my commanding, I was there at it was sort of a ceremonial unit, what they would do, and of course the situation then, it was the height of the Cold War, and the situation was you would sort of expect that one day the Russians would be all out in front of the barracks and they would say, stack arms, and that might be might be it. But at any rate, my commander was the older brother of one of my high school classmates, and he recommended me for assignment to the Administrative Liaison Office on the staff of the U.S. Commander of Berlin. And that was a wonderful duty. I was, instead of a tank, they gave me an Opel sedan to drive, and I had, we had a good time.
How long were you over there in Europe then?
I was there about 2 years. I came back in June '53.
All right. And that Berlin pretty much your duty station?
Berlin was my duty station, yes.
Right. Now, and you think you got to Shreveport in 1950?
Well, I would say I moved to Shreveport in 1957. That's when I got out of the service.
Right. And did you go
And
in?
finished law school, of course.
Now, when you came to Shreveport, was it to go into private practice?
Yes, it was.
And other than Mr. Goodman, did you have any other partners initially?
We had, let's see, with Bob, it was Bob and I, Naff, Goodman, Gallagher, and Johns was the name of the firm. Jimmy Johns, George Naff, and Bob, and of course I was the lone man on the totem pole.
Where'd y'all office? Where was your law firm
Beck
located?
Building.
In the Beck Building?
Mm-hmm.
And the, I guess, the family life, when did you marry?
On May 25th, 1962.
All right, and who did you marry?
I married Marilyn Hammond.
And where was she from?
She's from Shreveport, and her father was a manager for Forest Park Cemetery, so I would tell everybody that I married a planter's daughter.
And Forest Park Cemetery, of course, is still run today and here.
Yeah.
How many children did y'all have?
We had 4 children. Let's see, Paul was born in 1957, Laura in 1959, John in 1963, and Patrick in 1966.
Among your 4 children, are any of them lawyers?
Yes, Paul is a lawyer. John is a lawyer. Patrick is not a lawyer, but Patrick is the minute clerk for Judge Marcotte's court.
Here in Caddo.
Here in Caddo.
And where do your 2 sons who are lawyers, do they practice in?
They practice there, both in Baton Rouge.
Now, I want to ask you a little bit more about the time when you started practicing the law here in Shreveport with the law firm that you indicated. Do you recall, who were the judges that you would have appeared in front of let's just stay with Caddo, if you can recall?
Well, let's see, there was Willie Woods and Judge Galloway. It's hard to remember.
Now, was there a juvenile court during that?
Yeah, oh yes, there was a juvenile court that time. Chris Barnett was the judge. In 1964, Chris retired, and Gorman Taylor was appointed to succeed him.
Now, Judge, I want to ask you a little bit about your private practice. What primarily, if you would descriptively tell us what type of law practice did you have before you became a judge?
Probably, it was a very general law practice, some domestic, some real estate. We did engage in the development of some of these housing projects that have grown up around town.
Now, which ones are you talking about? Out like Western Hills? You talking about something more?
No, when I say housing project, I'm talking like they were usually lower income
Like the UL Goodman on Plaza on Jordan Street?
Yeah.
Uh, if you can recall, the federal judge at the time, was it Ben Dawkins
It was
Jr.?
Ben Dawkins, yes.
How did you get interested in the juvenile court system?
Well, I guess I always kind of liked dealing with children, and I just, when the opportunity arose, I applied. Of course, I ran for the juvenile seat, of course, and I knew then I was going to be kind of restricted to that type of practice at that time, and so that's.
Did you have involvement with the juvenile court in Gorman-Taylor before you ran for the seat?
Yes, between John Richardson, who was district attorney at that time, and Judge Taylor, they named me the legal officer of the juvenile court. Now, that's where I said I was the bastard district attorney. I didn't have any tenure or anything. I was simply like a retained lawyer.
Duties were what? What did you have to do?
Well, I practiced, I handled juvenile cases. I handled child support, non-support cases. I handled certain abuse cases, that type of problem.
And when did you get elected to the seat?
I was elected in, I believe it was January 19, or the fall of 78. Took office in the first of the year in 1979.
Now, at that time, it was yourself and Judge Gorman-Taylor were the two sitting judges
that's
in
correct.
the juvenile court. Over the years, and I've certainly had the pleasure of appearing before you, y'all did adoptions.
Yes.
Certainly had traffic court for people who had trouble with their driving. Or
That's
their
correct.
ability
Were
to
you
drive.
there?
I was there on occasion with clients, Judge.
Oh, okay.
But there was, at least my observation of that time period, there was a lot of counseling that I saw you and Judge Taylor do to the children, to the young adults who were brought into the juvenile court system. And so I want you to tell us a little bit about how did you, at least in your opinion, you and Judge Taylor shape that juvenile court here in Shreveport?
Well, I think that the whole idea was, for instance, you take in the traffic court the question of fines and everything. Those fines were calculated as to something that the parent could easily handle. Every once in a while there was a serious offense, of course, that might end up in the district court. We didn't have many of those. You had an awful lot of truancy. You had a lot of there were three categories of juvenile offender. The delinquent child, who was the child who committed an offense which would have been a crime had he been an adult. The child, back then we called them the children in need of supervision, who were children usually beyond the control of their parents. And then, of course, the abused and neglected child, who's before the court for no reason on his own, but that's what somebody either did do or did not do for or with him.
Judge, how long were you out at juvenile court as the sitting judge?
I retired on September 21st, 1999, at the behest of the legislature of the state of Louisiana.
A mandatory retirement.
Mandatory retirement, that's
now,
correct.
And this is something I think that's unique, Judge, to your situation. After your retirement, though, you didn't just sit at home. You became
well. Let me
judge,
say this. Right after I retired, of course, they had to appoint somebody for my seat, and so they named me to that seat, while a new judge ran, and he ran in a contested election. So that took the better part of a year, and so I remained as the judge at that time until the election of the successor judge.
And after your retirement from the juvenile court here in Caddo Parish, you have been appointed by the Supreme Court to sit as the ad hoc judge all over the state, northern part of the state. What?
Well, I'll tell you what. One time they had suggested to me that I'd like to go. Would I consider going to Baton Rouge? And my wife got wind of that, and she said, "You are not going to Baton Rouge down there with your two sons."
But
So
you-
I couldn't take that assignment.
But you've been seated in, I know, Coshada and Caddo and trying cases up until, well, currently.
Well, that's right. That's right.
And as just a comparison, how is it as a sitting judge in a, let's say, a civil district court lawsuit compared to your experience as a juvenile court judge? Did you have any trouble transitioning?
I don't think I did, really.
Now, there's another thing that you've done that I think we need to mention, and that is, in 1975, the Louisiana legislature passed a Medical Malpractice Act. Part of the component of that statute was that there would be medical review panel opinions chaired by an attorney in the parish in which the action arose. When did you first become an attorney chairman for the medical review panels that you still chair today in 2014?
Well, I think Sidney Cook, who was a member of the Cook Yancey law firm that time, he was the one that suggested to me, would I like to try it? And I said, sure, in effect. And so they appointed me as chairman of this panel, of the first, it may have been the very first medical review panel in the state. I think it was the first one in this part of the state.
And that would be shortly then after 1975.
Yes.
And Judge, have you then continuously chaired medical review panels, just about continuously up until today?
Yes, sir, I have, and still do.
And still do. In addition to your active practice of chairing the panels, and you still are sitting as an ad hoc judge, correct?
I do from time to time when the Supreme Court requests me to.
You have mentored a number of young people through the, of course, through the juvenile court system, but also in your private practice of the medical review panels and administering those, have you not?
I have.
Let's just, a general question. Do you remember who was your first associate that you had help you with the medical review panels?
Well, this was, in effect, it was somebody who would help me with whatever I was doing, whatever practice I was handling. It was broader than just the medical review panel. But it was Douglas Deggs. And when Douglas came to work for me, that put me back through Byrd High School again. And that's an experience. I've been through it 4 times.
With your children, correct? As a matter of fact, there's a picture we're going to show at the end of your daughter when she was, I know she was like the homecoming court, football sweetheart, and the cheerleader at Byrd during the time that she was there, correct?
She sure was.
Now, Douglas Deggs, I believe he was a Rhodes, he ultimately was a Rhodes
He went to
college.
Rhodes. He
Yeah.
went to Rhodes, and he was interested in, I was going to say at one time in architecture, art primarily. He became an art major. He went to graduate school at the University of Iowa in the field of art. And art is not something that I can speak to. I don't know too much about art.
So we're not authoritative on that subject. But
No.
in addition to Douglas, then you also, I know, because I've seen the pictures you had, I believe it was Blake, who is in the military now.
Well, that's true. Blake Larkin, he's the son of Tim Larkin, a developer over in Bossier. Blake, I had asked Dr. Vegan for some help, and Dr. Vegan referred Blake to me.
You talking about Mark Vegan?
Mark Vegan, yes.
Uh-huh.
And I called, Blake called me, and we talked a few minutes, and I said, why don't you come on down? He said, I believe I'll swing on down by your office. Well, you had the job. When he responded that way.
And what is Blake doing now?
Blake is awaiting assignment to, we don't know where. Of course, he can't tell you anymore. You see, since he's a Green Beret, whatever they do is their business, and they don't let on. Sometimes you can psych it out if you listen carefully. But Blake right now has his Green Beret. Of course, he's a graduate of jump school, and there are pictures of him making his first jump on my office wall.
I saw that. And so, how long did he work with you?
Well, he came. See, that put me through basic training again. And I think I think when he graduated, let's see, he graduated from basic, and then he went on to jump school. So that's probably he didn't work for me after he went to jump school.
Now, I know you mentored him, but you also have somebody that more recent that I remember working with who's in law school now, and that would be, I believe it was Micah Goodwin.
Well, I was looking for somebody later on, and I asked Bobby Pugh, did he know of anybody? Bobby said, well, we've got this fella down at the office who's done some work for us. He's good at moving stuff. So I got hold of Micah. He was kind of like Blake. After the first question I asked him, I said, "You got the job." And he came on, and Micah worked for me for 3 years. He came in February 2010. Micah applied for law school and was accepted ultimately, initially at the University of Denver. Then his wife, he married in 2011, and his wife's mother had a medical problem. And I was getting ready he was going to leave and go to law school, and I got a call saying that he was going to postpone his law school for a year so that he could kind of spell his wife and be supportive of her in her mother's illness.
So now both he and Dory are in law school, his wife.
Yes. Well, yes, Dory took the LSAT. Oh, she went to a couple of his classes, liked him, took the LSAT. All I know is she had a walk-on scholarship.
Yeah, she did very well. I know
yes,
that.
she did very well.
So, Judge, you've mentored then all through these years a number of young people who've done very well, and then you keep up with all of them, I'm sure. And you
I do.
And you still have somebody that's working with you today.
I do. I have a landman working for me today. Now that's a new area. But
now let me ask you. I want to go back to the practice of law a little bit during the time that you were in private practice, or you can tell me when you were a judge. Who was kind of the colorful characters that you recall that would be members of the bar when either you started or when you first got on the bench?
Well, I'll have to be. There was. I'm just trying. I'm trying to think. Now that's hard. I got to dig back a while. But there were a lot of colorful characters.
When I've asked that question in the past, Judge, a lot of people tell me, well, I've got a lot of stories, but I really can't share them with you right now on my video here, but I'll talk to you later.
Well, I'm kind of in that situation too.
In the, and this is a general question, in the practice of law, anything you've observed from the time that you guys started, you and Mr. Goodman and George Knapp, and I know that Mr. Donovan came to that firm after a period of time.
He did, and then later on, I formed a partnership with my cousin John Gallagher, and D. Alexander was an attorney at that time, and we formed Gallagher, Alexander, and Gallagher, or the GAG law firm it was known as.
And where did y'all practice? Where was your firm located?
I think we were still in the back building.
And
I think.
And what type of law?
Anything that came in.
Did y'all do criminal work, defense
yeah,
work?
Some criminal work, some damage suits, some real estate development and real estate.
I would be curious, during that time period, were there many jury trials in a civil setting, not criminal now, but many jury trials in a civil setting?
Well, when I first came to Louisiana, I was given to understand that you didn't see a civil jury trial very often. And I think there's been many more since then, but it was kind of something new. I remember going and watching a medical malpractice trial downtown, and it was quite different. It was different.
What about currently when you're doing as the ad hoc appointment to the Supreme Court? Have you presided over any jury trials?
Yes, the recent jury trial. I have several that are upcoming, will be upcoming, criminal and civil. But I'll have to comment about one jury trial that I had, and I had Ray Sheffield, my current assistant, with me, and we tried it down in Coshada, which was, of course, a relatively, I call it unsophisticated parish, but
It's rural, that's for
a
sure.
rural parish. And we went down there and tried it for, picked the jury, tried it for 3 days, and it was a controversial case. And we had a number of high-powered lawyers in it, and so we finished the case. Everybody rested. We went back to the office, sat down and waited, and took about 2.5 hours. And they came through with a verdict, and the plaintiff had sued for $10 million, and the jury in Coshada gave $5 million.
Wow, it's a big verdict.
And it kind of set me back. I was really surprised, but it was a very, very interesting case.
Judge, the Shreveport Bar Association, you've been a member for a long time?
Since I came to Shreveport.
Anyway, can you recall who the president was when you first started, or one of the presidents?
I'd have to see if the president of the bar back when I first started. It's hard for me to tell. It's hard for me to tell.
In the bar activities or that you've been involved in, or that are still existing, I'm just curious, did they used to have a Christmas party?
They did.
With a band and a dance, I've been told?
They did.
Either down at the Petroleum Club or perhaps out at the Shreveport Country Club years ago. Anything that you have seen over the course of your time, though, that in the Shreveport bar context, that you think, well, I wish we still had that, or that's something that we probably ought to try to do again? Because it's a much bigger bar than it was when you started, by hundreds.
Well, it's a bigger bar, and there are such wonderful facilities now for the bar and for bar activities. And I think that it's I think that the Bar Association has a reasonable amount of social activity, golf tournaments, things of that nature. I think anything activity that the bar engages in is I try to take part in.
And you still come to the monthly meetings and participate?
Try to make. Sometimes I don't quite make all of them because of other court commitments, but yes, I try to.
So, Judge, currently
stay active.
You're performing the functions as an ad hoc judge, as we've talked about in our part of the state. You're continuing to do your medical malpractice panels and mentor the young people. Is there anything that you do as a hobby or something outside the law that you and your wife have enjoyed doing?
Well, a lot of these activities are just, they take the place of a hobby. I always liked cars. And I haven't...
You talking about driving cars or working on cars? Or?
Oh, no, don't let me work on your car. No, I like driving. I like different cars. I've had a lot of cars over my period of time. And right now, though, as you get older and your children are growing up and they're driving, my cars seem to decline the quality of my mode of transportation. Daddy always seemed to get the old car.
Still, I'm sure it still does.
Still does.
Judge, I also know that you've kept up and active in your Washington and Lee
yes.
as an alumna.
Yes.
And every now and then you get your paraphernalia, from belts to car stickers to, I guess, hats and shirts that kind of keep you going. But there's a strong Washington and Lee contingent here from Shreveport.
Oh, yes.
And always has been.
Always has been. And here when I got here.
Oh, really? And have done very well. Judge, I think we're going to close by saying that we are going to put some pictures that you brought here today as part of our video. I want to thank you on behalf of the Shreveport Bar and the Louisiana Bar Foundation for taking part in our oral history, and obviously from the standpoint of a practicing lawyer, a judge, and somebody who's been a pioneer in the medical malpractice arena in the panels. Thank you very much for your service to the bar, and I know you'll do it for a long time to come.
Well, I appreciate that, and I'm honored to have been asked.
Very good. Thank you. Judge, you did. That's. You ready? Bobby will give you the high sign when you're ready. And I'm just going to give you
You got it? Okay. Can I look at the page?
Yes.
This is a photograph of myself, Judge Taylor, and Martha Ann Gold, who was our secretary at the time. And Ms. Gold was she was a hard taskmaster. And so when Ms. Gold said do something, we did it pretty quickly. We had this is just a routine office. At this point, we're reviewing proposed legislation.
Juvenile court.
For juvenile court.
All right. Let me hand you another picture if you could explain. Hold it up and tell us what that is.
All right. This is a photograph of me and my daughter, Laura, who was a 1976 football sweetheart at Byrd High School.
It's a good picture. That's 1976, Judge. That's about 46 years ago to help us date that young-looking Judge Gallagher in that picture.
Oh, the same year she was elected junior prom queen.
So she had a good tenure. Let me ask you to hold this, and you're going to need to tilt it. And that's generally, I'll let you tell us about it. That's going to be a family photographs of you and your 4 children and your wife, right?
Correct.
Yeah, and just pan it over.
Now, of course, we've left grandchildren out. I'm a little bit...
Go ahead. Tell us about he's panning it. Go ahead and tell us about the grandchildren.
All right. I have 3 grandchildren. My daughter Laura has 2 in Dallas. They're both graduates of SMU. Incidentally, my daughter is the registrar at the SMU School of Law. That's Claire and Harris. Harris just graduated from SMU, and he's now in between jobs, looking for a job. Claire has established herself in the area of, I don't exactly know what her field is, but she seems to be doing very well with it.
All right, and you got other grandchildren?
Yes. There's also the dude who is 14 years old, and that is Patrick's son. And now Patrick remarried, and he doubled my number of grandchildren because his present wife has 3 of hers. So that doubled my number of grandchildren. One fell swoop.
And then do you have any others? Does John have any?
John does not. John is not married. Paul is not married. I have there's a bachelor gene in my family, I guess. I'm not sure which.
And you and your wife have been married. This is going to put you on the spot. How many years have y'all been married?
All right, I believe it's 52. Wait a minute, is it 52? We were married in May 25th, 1962. I know we've been married at least 50 years. Hey, we still speak.
You're over 50 years, Judge, and you're doing good.
I think, but somebody do the math on it for me.
I think it's 52.
Okay.
You're doing good, and she's still active too. When we deliver submissions, sometimes she's taking them for us.
Oh yeah, she'll yeah, and if she doesn't like it, she'll tell you.
Judge, again, thank you very much.
All right, thank you, and I appreciate your giving me the opportunity to say a few words.
Excellent.
Okay.
All right, we're back. At my request, Judge Gallagher, I've asked you to put the robe on so I can ask you one last question. As part of our historical perspective, I'd like to know, how long have you been a judge?
I was first elected in January 1979.
And you've continuously served in that capacity up through today?
Through September 21st, 1999. And as ad hoc. That time, when asked by the Supreme Court.
And you still have cases on your docket today?
I do.
Very good. Thank you very much, Judge.